Hello again, Gills fans. Welcome back to the latest episode of Gills in the Blood TV for another match day review show. And unfortunately, after the highs of last Sunday, when myself and Reese were able to bring you the reflection on a brilliant 3-1 win against Salford City, it was us being brought crashing back down to earth as yesterday the Gills travelled to Prenton Park and succumbed to the scoreline of the same, which was 3-1 to Tranmere Rovers. Sorry, that made absolutely no sense. I didn't get into after midnight. I woke up late. I've scribbled some notes down. So bear with me. I might just let Reese run the show. Yes, 3-1 to Nigel Atkins' men. The Gills goal coming in injury time. It was no more than a consolation. As good as a strike it was from Conor Mahoney and that wand of a left foot yet again. But Reese, on the whole, I've written down stats paint a very different picture to watching the game on the whole, because I had a couple of people come to me and said, oh, we've had X amount of corners, this amount of shots, more possession, more shots on target. Surely we can't have been that bad.
Yeah,
But for me, they paint a very different picture to what we actually watched, either as a whole on iFollow or in the ground.
that's it. What's on paper and what happens in reality are two different things, I think, in this context. And I mean, yeah, it was. I did look at the stats. I think some people posted them, and I think one person alluded to the fact, oh, there's obviously a change in style that's obviously developing at the moment, but the end result still is the same, especially away from home, and it's just
It is.
yeah, it was a complete. I don't know. For me, it was a very strange game yesterday. It was a very weird one. But I'm finding it hard words to describe it, actually, because it felt very flat. But also, I saw some moments where, there is some development. But then I thought, oh no, we're back to our same mentality. That was a concoction of everything. It was really odd to
It
watch.
is, yeah, because if you just said to someone, oh, here's the stats from the game, Tranmere against Gillingham, possession, Tranmere 34, Gill 66, shots 8-11, shots on target 3-5, block shots 2-3, corners 0-10. But then I suppose the one that distorts it back in favour of the home team is big chances 2-0.
Mm.
Passes 683 Gills made or attempted yesterday. They completed 557, which I would say is probably comfortably our highest in many a year.
Mm-hmm.
82% pass completion. But where are you making these passes? Because it's all
Yeah,
right going goalkeeper to centre half to fullback, fullback to centre midfielder, and back to your centre half, and then rinse and repeat. You're not getting anywhere.
I
Tranmere would
think
be happy for us to do that in that area of the pitch as well.
I think that just completely exposes where we need development. If we can play that comfortable football in our half or up in pushing towards the final third, that's fantastic. Great, we can do that. But actually, what's happening with that ball moving forward? And it's just like, I think even when Harris was here, we had a great defensive, solid performance, but it's just because we weren't scoring many goals. We had a solid defense that we were getting the points. But again, I think yesterday's game really exposed where we are lacking. And I think you mentioned it in your video. That Salford game is an anomaly. Actually, shame it wasn't a springboard. It turns out to be something unusual.
Yeah, that was
And
what it felt like yesterday watching it, was that was the flash in the pan last Saturday against Salford, because we reverted to type yesterday. And you only have to look at the clinical nature of their goals. And I know we give them a massive leg up for all three, unfortunately, but
yeah,
we'll get to that in more detail. And I think you make a good point about Neil Harris, but we were probably better defensively under Neil Harris than we have been since he left the football club. And we've got some numbers at the end of the show that we're just going to have a quick look at. But 2 o'clock Saturday afternoon is always where we start, and the team news came out. Tranmere Rovers lined up in a 4-4-2, so that was McGee in goal, a back four from right to left of O'Connor, Davies, Turnbull and Woods. Four in front in midfield was Actor. We'll mention him, unfortunately, too many times as
yeah.
the show goes on. Walker, Hendry, Morris, Jennings, we'll mention him one time too many at least, unfortunately, and Christian Dennis. For the Gills, it was one change from the Salford City win, and that was Scott Malone returning from injury in place of Max Clark. Perhaps a little harsh, but understandable given the pedigree that Scott Malone has. So the team in full was Jake Turner in goal, a back four of Shea Alexander, Connor Masterson, Shad Hogan, Scott Malone. It was Ethan Coleman in front protecting. Another quartet in front of him of Connor Mahoney, George Lapsley, Dom Jeffries and Johnny Williams, and Tom Nichols leading the line. First half, Reece, I've written down game of nothing for half an hour. We had lots of the ball. We kept it. We got into the final third, then picked the wrong option or didn't execute properly. They had one half chance blocked. And that's what it
Yeah.
felt like for half an hour. There was just not a lot happening.
No, there was a lot. Yeah, there was a lot of sideways pass, sideways pass, sideways pass, and then Tranmere just holding a shape. And then it was like a start of a chess match. It seemed where no one was making any advance forward at all. And you know, it was. Yeah, it was. I think a lot of the first half yesterday, I wasn't even, you know, I was watching, but I felt like I was half watching because nothing was really happening. Nothing was really getting me excited about the game whatsoever, apart from the fact that for once we had a lot of possession, which is, you know, considering us the whole last 2 or 3 years, seemed unusual. You know?
Yeah, and I actually thought watching it, I thought, as much as, because I think Conor Mahoney hit 2 crosses, I think Johnny Williams did the same. And I was thinking, okay, all right, execution's better, we're all right here, because we didn't look overly troubled defensively.
No.
I think the half chance they had, Conor Masterson got out, made a fairly comfortable block, and we defended the corner. But I was thinking, it's similar to Salford. The game's being played predominantly in the middle third. We said last week it felt like 2 boxers feeling each other out. But then we went and delivered the knockout blows, in the second half. And I thought, well, if we can get in at half time, 0-0, we've done our job. We've quietened the crowd. So from that point of view, I thought it wasn't an awful performance. But the trouble is, we then give up 2 chances in the final portion of the first half. The first one's to Christian Dennis, who luckily from our point of view went through and finished like a striker that's not full of confidence and full of goals at the moment, and dragged it woefully wide. I think it ended up as one of them that sort of span closer to the corner flag than our goal. We'd had a couple of sighters from range, Shad Ogie, Conor Mahoney, that again had ended up closer to the corner flag or the, you know, row N, row F or whatever.
Anfield.
Or Anfield, yeah. I was trying to be polite. But yeah, the Dennis chance came and went. I think, and then, so it sort of came alive in that last 10 minutes. They had that. We went up the other end and we actually probably put together our best passage of play in the whole first half. There was about 5 or 6 people involved. I think Lapsley, Jeffries, Williams. I think then Nichols managed to play in between the centre half and the fullback, and Scott Malone got in behind. Obviously, it's far end to me. Is it a shot? Is it a cross? Or is it a bit of both from Scott that Luke McGee ends up blocking?
It's a little bit of both. I think the initial is a shot. I think he's trying to get it on target and it's blocked. And then it falls to Nichols, I think, who takes a bit of a scrappy shot at it, which then I think another defender blocks. And then it sort of, I think Lapsley tries to get something on it and it skews over to McGee, who just picks it up. But that really was the only thing to get excited about it from a Gillingham perspective in that first half. You know, I think you do that another 10 times, maybe 2 or 3 of those ping the back of the net by fortuitous circumstances. But it was a bit of a scramble that really no one, I think, again, it's one of those things that everyone was surprised the ball was at their feet, I think. And and unfortunately just didn't go in the back of the net. But yeah, that was really the only moment of the game in that first half for Gills that had anything to cheer about, I suppose, and was a result of all of the passing and moving that we'd done. Like, we looked comfortable on the ball. It was the only thing that ever came to fruition, and it wasn't really that much of a big chance. It was just pinball in the box, essentially. So
yeah, the first bit I think was very good, and then when it comes to the key moment, again, it comes down to that word execution again, doesn't it? And just picking the right option. I get to defend Scott Malone a little bit because I thought he was poor on the day. He looked like a player coming back from injury, but you can understand why he's just sort of trying to fizz it across to that far post area, because if it goes in, it goes in. And sometimes if it hits the keeper and falls to a centre forward, you've got to tap in. So I can understand that. But yeah, that was as good as it got, really, in terms of there was no real concerted pressure from us. We'd already had the slight warning about Robert Apter. We then had another one. We were down to 10 men at the time. And I want to ask you about officials, because I don't like this new rule where if a player goes off injured, he then has to stand on the side of the pitch for 30 seconds, 45 seconds before he can come back on. And it's at this time that we're down to 10 men and Robert Apter nearly scores. Ben's one wide of the far post after cutting in onto his left foot. But again, we weren't learning. We kept letting come in onto his left foot, which we knew was his strong point, and we got away with it twice, and we didn't get away with it a couple of minutes afterwards. But it was a worrying trend.
But it was right. And also about that point, I think there's a difference from watching the ground I follow. I didn't even realise we were down to 10 men for that period of play. I had no idea. But to kind of build on Apter's development there, he was soon. I think the first time he received the ball on the right hand side, it just crossed my mind. I went, "Oh goodness me, he's going to be a real handful today." You could just tell his type of play, and also he's all left footed, and even with that knowledge, he was still undoing a lot of the play, a lot of defense. So you could tell he was a real threat. He had real direction and real vigor moving forward. and it was always going to be a problem. And that's where their goals were going to come from. I could just see it. And we weren't really doing much, I think, in terms, especially in the second half as well. We weren't really doing much to try and to stop that. But I think Apter built his own confidence throughout that game. And I think it started from the first movement forward. Yeah, when I think he took on Scott Malone, and then he was really looking like he was hungry for something in this game, and trying to prove a point, if anything else.
Like you say, decisive in everything that he did. It didn't always come off, but he was. Whereas you felt with us again, it was, we got to a certain point on the pitch and then we'd stop and slow it down and then maybe play the safe option a little bit, which was a shame again after how we played second half, particularly against Salford just 7 days previously. But the third time we didn't learn again, and it was 1-0 to Tranmere just before the half-time interval. Whether they deserve to be in front, that's up for debate in terms of clear-cut chances, but they were. I've just watched the highlights back before we've started recording. It's absolutely awful from our point of view. It's a long punt downfield from Luke McGee. I think it's Shadogi. I'm not sure why he's gone over that side, because that's Connor Masterson's half of the pitch, but Shay Alexander's involved as well. I said at the time, it looked to me like no one had taken responsibility, and I'll stick by that. They all sort of go towards the ball. No one takes charge of it. Ogie dangles a leg out, and it bounces back off Apter. From there, Apter's, it's a great finish. Don't get me wrong, half volley, left foot into the roof of the net. But again, there's another question mark, and I know his name came up on social media on the journey home. Jake Turner. The first phase, I don't think we've got any debate. We have to be better.
Oh yeah, of course.
I'm going to ask you as a former keeper, should Jake Turner maybe do better, because that's beating him at his near post from the edge of the box.
Put it this way, I was very surprised it went in, actually, from that angle, and because it looked like at the back of the net, right in the centre. And I thought, Turner, where are you standing for that to happen? Has there been was that the only thing I could probably say? Was that a surprise shot that you experienced? But even if it was a surprise shot, I think Apter took it pretty quickly. It's how I imagined Thierry Henry would take that shot, just very early. But even so, the angle, it's not got much to cover. I wonder if he just was slightly wrong-footed, wasn't quite set, and then because of that, his percentage chance to say it was slightly lower, and he got on the wrong side of that percentage. But for me, I think he saves more than he doesn't if that did that 100 times, and it's just, I think he got caught out a little bit, and I also think that the timing of the goal, the fact they probably should have saved it, probably didn't build enough confidence moving into the second half, because as a goalkeeper, if you let one through which you feel you should save, even though you're trying to, you pull your socks up and try and move forward with it, it does linger in your mind, and that can have an impact on the second and then phase of play in the second goal and so on. Like that can happen, and I wonder if this was just. I hope for Turner was an anomaly performance, because he's been pretty solid for it the whole season, but I did expect him to save that first goal, but I reckon that was a turning point for his game, if I'm totally honest.
Yeah, because there were a couple of bits second half we slipped over, ball came back to him, and then he looked uncomfortable trying to pass it out from the back or clearing it, and we nearly got caught out. And someone, I think it was a Tranmere fan, said to me, messaged me and said, "Core, your keeper doesn't look suited to playing out from the back." And I said, well, to be fair to him, we've not seen that from him before. He's usually been fairly solid. It just seemed that, so maybe if the goal was on his mind, or the surface was slightly slicker than he'd anticipated. But yeah, for one reason or another, everything unravelled fairly quickly. And if you look at the timing of the goals, it's a 17-minute period of play where we've conceded 3 goals, because second half, we're 2-0 down in a flash. I froze the highlights this morning, paused the highlights when I'm watching this. So, okay, it's neat and tidy. We've done a lot of neat and tidy stuff as well. And I suppose you can stand off, like we've said, if it's in an area that's not hurting you. But is there enough pressing from us? Because the ball gets worked through the centre and it goes out to their right wing. We then go out and it gets cut back into the central area, sort of inside channel. And then it's just a clip ball. It's not whipped in with any pace or anything like that. I think it's just one of them balls, you clip it into an area and you let your centre forward go and challenge. I've paused the highlights. So there's 3 players from Tranmere in the box on the edge of the 6-yard line from Tranmere, and there's 3 from us.
Yep.
But if there's a bit of communication, we can go one-on-one, man for man. But we don't, for whatever reason. So you've got Shadogi stood marking nobody. Connor Masterson has then shuffled to pick up Ogie's man. Shay Alexander is then tucked in to mark Masterson's man. There's a player at the back post. And yet still, Jennings is able to run in between two people and head it in unattended. It's awful defending from my point of view. People might shoot me down and say, and I'm generally very much of, if it's a good goal, let's give credit to the opposing team. But I just thought, again, we were very, very lax, and it just looked like people. We keep hearing this word leaders, don't we?
Yeah. But it felt like to me, if you're in the school playground, it feels a little bit like, no, that was, you need to do that. No, you need to do it. Everyone blaming each other. You need to take a chance. You need to go and get that's your ball. And the more it feels like the more people in the box, the less responsibility people seem to want to have by real numbers. But
that sums it up well. It literally felt like that yesterday, or certainly watching the highlights. Obviously, we was the other end of the pitch, so you can't get a proper view of what's exactly gone on at the time. You get a fair idea. Again, I saw the only person, it looked to me like in the highlights, I know it's a very small segment and it could be completely wrong and it's only what I've seen. Ethan Coleman seemed to be the only one that was talking and saying to people, look, this isn't good enough. Everyone else was just head down, fiddling with their socks, tucking their shirt in, untucking their shirt and walking back into position.
Coleman, yes, actually in that whole first half, actually for most of the game, for me was the one that had a little bit of gump about him, a little bit of fight about him, and I thought he was, if there was going to be some game changer. Well, actually, there's another one I want to talk about later, but before the substitutions, he was the one that was it was playing solid, was going to make something happen, and was the most. Oh, you're right, was the most vocal on that pitch, and look. I tell you what, he looks like the most experienced player on that pitch as well. For me yesterday,
times he did, yeah, which is a little bit concerning when you've got people like Scott Malone, Johnny Williams, George Lapsley, Tom Nichols, all sort of late 20s or 30s that should be showing a bit more. Connor Mahoney coming down from the Championship as well. I know it's not in everybody's makeup and characteristics to be loud and to be
no, of course not,
captain-like, but we need to see a bit more. That would be my biggest concern at the moment, because what we hear is, oh, everyone's excited for the new manager coming in, but there's been very little new manager bounce, unfortunately. And we'll talk about that in a little while, but 2 quickly became 3. And I said on the Match Day Live, if it wasn't game over at 2-0, it most certainly was at 3-0. And again, it's not very good from our point of view. It's certainly not something you'd be showing a young kid or putting in any defensive manual. It's Apter again. So we know what he's going to do. He's going to get the ball on the right. He's going to slow it down and then accelerate and shift it onto his left foot to try and get a shot off. Now, I think there's 3 players around him. I think it's Scott Malone, Johnny Williams, might be Dom Jeffries. I'm not sure. The highlights are not great in terms of being able to pause it and getting a clear picture. But we let him get a shot off. They all dangle a leg again. It's schoolboy stuff, dangling a leg out. It's like that token effort of, oh, yeah, I tried to block the ball, but did you really? I don't think you did. And to sum us up, it's Shadogi, goes for his legs. Romford's Jake Turner, he ends up on his arse, looking sorry for himself. And 60 minutes gone, I think it was. And it's absolutely game, set and match.
Absolutely. It's really funny you talking about leaders now, and it's just sort of struck me really. You could have these loud characters on the pitch, and I'm sure there are many. Roy Keane springs to mind occasionally when I think of that kind of thing. But actually, what I think, if we're going to have a team that's not going to have that kind of like person who's going to be directive, then we need to have a leader that leads by example. And I don't think that was on show yesterday, apart from Coleman possibly was trying to do the right thing. But I don't think anyone was leading by example and trying to move responsibility elsewhere and not being 100% committed to everything they're meant to be doing in their role. And that third goal really sums that up, dangling a leg, like you say. If you dangle a leg, you're going to make an awful deflection, and it's going to make it really tricky for a goalkeeper. As a goalkeeper, one of the things I hated the most when a shot was coming in, if someone just tried to put a leg in front of it, because it's the equivalent of having a cone in the middle of the box that it could just flick off of, and you have to try and react to it. And that's what happened in that third goal. But then leading by example for me was Apter. He was hungry. He's like, I'm going to take a shot at goal. I'm going to try and make something happen. And I think that really summed up that third goal for me. Really summed up an awful performance up until that point. And then we'll obviously change. There was a bit of fight suddenly after going 3-0 down. It's just something which is a bit weird, but that's how I kind of felt after that third goal, when it really summed up everything up until that point.
Yeah, because if you'd looked at the last half hour as a game, you just walked in at 63 minutes or whatever it was and gone, oh, this is a good game. The away side looked decent. But surely there's a massive degree of Tranmere just playing in second gear and just sitting off and allowing us to play, and then they can play on the break. And again, it comes back to this point about someone replying to me, and he said, like, we've had all these stats, so if you were there, can you tell me why it was so different? And this is where it is. We made 2 changes around the hour after the third goal, Jules Lapsley and Johnny Williams came off. Timmy Dieng came on, and Jaden Clark. Timmy Dieng was in the thick of the action straight away.
Yeah.
He starts the move on the right-hand side, and I said on the match day live he'd offered more in 25 seconds or whatever it was. It probably was a bit longer than that, but you get my point. Than pretty much everyone else had in 64 minutes. He starts the move on the right. He tries to cut it back. Again, to sum us up, it goes sort of in between two players, but we keep it alive, and the ball works its way out. I think it was to Scott Malone, and then he clips a decent enough delivery to the back post, and Dieng catches it on the volley. It's a good save from Luke McGee. I think it was going inside the post, and you never know if we'd got one with half out to play. It could have been a bit different, but I certainly wouldn't have been putting any type of mortgage on it. Then there's another half chance. Tom Nichols has a shot from the edge of the box after getting the ball in space, and it's deflected wide. It looked like he'd caught it fairly well. Then he was withdrawn. Macaulay Bonne came on. Then Ethan Coleman had a shot from the edge of the box that was palmed over. So it's another shot on target. It's another corner. The tally's going up. Corner comes in. Macaulay Bonne, flick header. Shadogi looks like he's going to tap it in, but for a defender's toe. Another corner. Still going up. Another half chance a couple of minutes later. Scott Malone tries to chip the keeper, palmed over for a corner. So suddenly you've seen us have, I'll work it out, Dieng volley, Nichols drive, Coleman effort, Bonne header, Malone chip, 5 shots, which I think all led to corners.
Yep.
Distorts the facts, doesn't it? The fact that this has all happened, that we were already game over, 3-0 down.
Yeah, where that impetus came, I don't know. Like suddenly we're trying, but I mean, for what it's worth, apart from Dieng maybe, and I think the rest are in the most, in the politest possible way, they are kind of like half the 3/4 chances, but they do go in statistics as a full chance, as it were. I thought, Dieng's shot, the volley, I thought that when he came on, he did something, it just lifted the team suddenly. Like he did something. I don't know what it was, but he just came on and everything just sort of worked for a period of time, and he was just creating stuff and making stuff happen. And then I think the next best chance, I think, shame Owens didn't get a foot on that. It was a good bit of defensive toe. But then the other one was, Scott Malone having an audacious chip at the keeper has to tip over. And you know what? For a team that should be, we're trying to score goals. I think if we tried to do it in the first half, we might put a little bit of extra pressure on Tranmere and one might slip through. And that's all it takes. But we're doing it when we're 3-0 down. And
this is it. Why was we not having a shot from the edge of the box when it was 0-0 or 1-0, when we're still in the game? Because it's unfortunately, it's futile at 3-0 down. It means squat. Apart from it just pads out your numbers on a stats generated app, and it makes the game look slightly different than it actually was. And so that was my point when I replied to this gentleman on Twitter and said that, we can keep it and we can make loads of passes. Again, it's where you're making them passes. We did score a goal, and it was a very good goal, and it was Conor Mahoney's magical left foot again, and it's another goal from outside the box. I don't think he scored from inside the box yet, has he, this season?
Not that I can recall. No, he's always done something quite extraordinary. So it's always been something 18-yard plus.
How many has he got now? Is it 4 or 5?
He's got 4 in the league, I think. This is, he got 1 at Swindon. 1 again.
So Morecambe smashed it in the top corner from the edge of the box at Rainham End.
Swindon,
edge of the box, slight deflection. Last week, outside the box, bottom corner, and outside the box free kick. Very, very good. I think I said on the Matchday Live, unfortunately, it wasn't in keeping with Conor Mahoney's overall performance yesterday. He was another one that got into good areas, and then the execution was well off most of the time. Certainly in open play. I think from corners he was okay. But we've already mentioned them 2 massively overhit crosses when it's crucial. That's the thing. At 0-0 or 1-0, you need your delivery to be on the money. It's all right doing it when the pressure's off and the game's gone and not much is riding on it, unfortunately. But he does have a wand of a left foot. So let's talk about the free kick, because there wasn't much positive to talk about, unfortunately, throughout the game. It's a very, very good goal.
It was kind of like when I was watching yesterday, I was kind of like, this is going to go in. Out of all, it's going to be a free kick that's going to be beautiful. It might get goal of the month, but it's as you use the word you've already used, it became futile. It was, but it was a good free kick, and it goes to show. And I think this is maybe it. Individually, every player out there has something in their locker. collectively, some sort of between cohesion or chemistry, it seems to be sporadic in every game. Either it's really good and it works really well, or it's really fragmented and everyone tries to play their own individual performance to try and get a result. And if you do the latter, that is not sustainable moving forward. You're not going to be able to be an individual 11 team and be challenging for the playoffs. You can't do that. So you're going to have some form of cohesion moving forward. And I think, and just after that free kick, and it's really weird when you score a goal when you've got 7 minutes of injury time to play, because I've seen 2 or 3 goals in 7 minutes in a football match. I think we all have.
Yeah.
There was a moment as it went
Just
back.
never seems to be us.
No, it never seems to be us at all, ever. I'm waiting for that to happen. Flashbacks of Oxford a few seasons ago when they did it to us. No, but it's well, the bit that there's a bit after the free kick, and I'm thinking, you know what? If we somehow sneak another goal and move forward, we've got a towels up. Goes back to OG. He passes it back to Jake Turner and he volleys it out for a throw-in from 20 yards up from the byline for Tranmere to take. And I just thought, what are you doing?
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, Connor Masterson he was trying to get it to Connor Masterson, and Connor Masterson was just like the same as us. Was like, what? Like, why? We've finally put some modicum of pressure on Tranmere, a side that's not played well all season. And then you just relieve all the pressure. Because I said, as the free kick went in, I went, 7 minutes of injury time, surely not.
Yeah. But there's a little bit of hope.
If you've got one more straight after, and then there was 3 or 4 minutes to play with, you don't know how Tranmere would have reacted. But unfortunately, I mean, there was a couple more corners, but I think one we got penalised for a foul, didn't we? Header came off. But that was it, and the full-time whistle went, and it was a long trip home. That's what I'm going to say. These trips seem to be a lot quicker when you've gone to Stockport opening day and you've won 1-0, and it's remember them heady summer days?
Yeah,
3
right.
points and clean sheets on the road.
Yeah,
they were nice. Yeah, it was a long old day for myself, Ava, and a lot of other people. I was up at 5 and didn't get through the door until gone midnight.
Absolute kudos to both of you, I have to say. I mean, I get the luxury of having just edit a video and then that's it. And whilst you're still sitting on the coach on the way back, I can totally feel that one. And
it was, but I've seen some people comment and say, "Oh, you should be refunded," but I've never been one that that's not how football works. I understand it when clubs come out and make gestures if you've gone all the way somewhere and you've got beat 7, 8, 9 or something like that. But we lost 3-1. It's you pays your money and you takes your chance, don't you? That's the old saying, and that's what it is with football, because it isn't guaranteed, because it is real life.
And I think sometimes, I think if you try and say, if you're an away travelling fan, obviously the football is the primary reason that you're making the journey. But if you try and take the day in its entirety, I think sometimes in that context, it's always going to be worth the day out, hopefully. And I'm,
there wasn't a lot to do in Tranmere. I'm not going to lie. I went in one pub and watched the first half of Liverpool Man City, and then there's not a great deal else on offer. So I'm not sure. If we'd won, I'd have probably gone, it's lovely.
Yeah, I'm sure. The point maybe I was trying to make, I mean, well, you got to spend a whole day with your girl. I suppose that's there's that side to
it. Yeah, she's probably, I'm not sure whether she thinks it's a treat or whether she's done something wrong sometimes. I don't know. Bless her. Well. Right, we've spoken about stats being misleading, and all these numbers being padded out in the final 20 minutes when the game's already gone. So we've covered that. I don't want to keep going on about previous managers and new directions that we were promised, but it makes pretty damning reading, unfortunately. When we sacked Neil Harris at the start of October, we were 4 points off top and we were 1 point off third. You fast forward 6, 7 weeks, we're now 13 points off top and we're 7 points off of third. We're outside the playoff zone. We'd lost 4 games in 11 in the league under Neil. Since then, we've lost 5 in 8. We don't seem to have had a new manager bounce, unfortunately, under Stephen Clements. We've lost 3 of the 5 games that he's been in charge of to Wrexham, Tranmere, and Fulham under 21s. We've beaten Salford and we've beaten Hereford. I know you can say, well, no one cares about the what's it called? It's not even the Papa John's now. It's something Bristol Street Motors trope.
Some Bristol, something in Bristol.
It's more and more glamorous and more appealing, doesn't it?
Exactly.
About as appealing as Tranmere away late in November. Who'd do that, eh?
I know, right?
But then if you're going to say that you can't count the Fulham Fulham under-21 game, there's a case to say that then you can't count the Hereford game that we did win. So if you break it down into league, we've won 1 game and lost 2, and we've conceded 6 in 3 games. Like you say, nothing fundamentally has changed in terms of output and numbers. We're still conceding too many. We're still not scoring enough. We've mentioned that Salford unfortunately looks like the flash in the pan rather than the start of something more consistent based on what we saw Saturday afternoon at Prenton Park. I get we've got to give Stephen Clements time, and I definitely am going to do that. But we've already seen rumblings on social media of people questioning him and his style, and you think, well,
hang on.
What do you want? If you wanted Harris out, you then can't moan about Stephen Clements after a month.
No.
But at the same time, the numbers aren't conducive to being too positive at the moment, are they? Because they've fallen off quite considerably since Neil Harris was sacked. Someone said to me yesterday, I think it was Reese, me and him and Jack have got a WhatsApp group regarding Gills in the pub. And Reese made a very pertinent point and said, at least we was defensively strong under Neil Harris. We look anything but at the moment.
I think what's really, I think if you take it from a larger perspective, like if you're Brett Ganson now, and you making this decision, like you know that a change of a manager at this point decision is going to be disruptive. It's always going to be disruptive, and that what's the threat of that? The threat of that is that your team is going to have some inconsistencies in results and style of play, and he knows that. He knows that this is not an unknown. And so, but then I'm sure he's looked at it and gone, "What's the opportunity?" So the opportunity cost here is that. Yeah, it is a risk, but in the long term, it could be a really big success story, which is under his watch. But the short term threat is that it's going to be disruptive. We're going to experience some disruption, a different style of play. It's going to be that we use that word again. There's going to be a transition of different tactics, different style, and that's going to be inconsistent as everyone starts to get used to it. And then we've got the January transfer window when different players come in. Then we have to build more chemistry. It's going to And I think if you look at it now, I would say that from now up until January, up to the end of the season, realistically, I think we're again in a season of consolidation transition whereby we can't, okay, let me phrase it that way. I don't think now we are really a team that's going to be pushing really for the playoffs. I think we'll be getting there. We've done well. We've done really well and a bit of luck on the way. But I think, I wonder, Brad Ganson, the way that he's taken this opportunity to get a new manager and to disrupt it at this time is more of a long-term play. But I can also see from the other side of the promises that we were looking for a top 7 finish, because when Harris went, we were 7th. So what does that mean? If you're looking at short-term gains, the next manager has to do that or better. So I can see it from that perspective as well. And that's why I can see fans would be very frustrated by that. So I can see both sides of this. But I think it's more of, do we take, it depends what the long-term goal is here. And I think that's where this kind of falls under. Is this disruption now worth what could be in the future? And that's a huge risk. It could be great, but it could just tumble and tumble and tumble. But we wait to see.
We do. And that, again, is ultimately all we can do. And we've mentioned it plenty of times that only after 46 league games will we ultimately know whether it was the right decision, the wrong decision, or maybe somewhere in between. But at the moment, I can't help but thinking everyone knows my thoughts on it, so let's not go over it again. But yeah, transitional, I think, again, is probably the right word. Just looking at the league table, we've lost more games than Grimsby, and Grimsby are 21st. I know we've won 9.
God.
So it just shows that ability to if you're not going to win games, make sure you don't lose them. And Neil used to say that. Sorry to go back to him at the moment, but we don't seem to be able to do that at the moment. And again, it comes back to the problem: concede the first goal. We're absolutely horrific. We are abhorrent at chasing games. It's like something goes off in a player's head and they just go and can't function properly. It's almost like robotic, that if you concede the first goal, you just take the batteries out of a Gillingham team and they don't function.
Yep.
Because look how quickly 1 became 2 and 2 became 3 at Prenton Park. And then, like we've already mentioned, we started playing last 20 minutes when Tranmere, let's be honest, are feet up having a cigar.
Yeah, no, exactly.
It's really, really concerning. So someone said to me yesterday to maybe deflect away from Stephen Clements, because I will back Stephen Clements as much as the next man, that. In the same way that I backed Neil Harris, in the same way that I backed previous managers, until they give me absolutely no reason to back them. And you certainly can't be in that frame of mind with Stephen Clements after 5 games. Is it the players? Is it the recruitment? Because this is now a third manager that's having the same issues. And again, it's very small a segment of games for Stephen Clements. I get that. And we had the hope that kills you from last week's performance where we thought, here we go. Is it something psychological, mental with these players now because it's been happening for so long?
I mean, how would you feel if everything kept changing every few months and you had to do a potentially different style? You've got to relearn some stuff again. I wonder if it's a mix. Again, it's a mixture of many things. But let's face it. The team that we have now is based on a Neil Harris style of play. We've moved into a Clement style of play. The players are the same. Some will adapt to it well. Some won't. Some will take their time. So and I think, is it the players yet?
I think
is it?
We've seen that we can adapt to a new style of play. I think people like George Lapsley and Johnny Williams are finding positions in that side where they can flourish, because we've always said, can we get them both into an 11? But I mean more in terms of this whole mental block of, if we concede the first goal, we're done.
Oh, I see.
Missing chances in front of goal. Because I'm not sure if we've mentioned it on episodes before, Reece, but there's 2 people that seem to be sort of just not being questioned at all here. Kenny Jackett and Andy Hessenthaler in terms of recruitment, because that's what they were brought in to do. Our goal scoring output is still awful for a team that's got aspirations of being in the top half, top 7, top 3, whatever. And now, with the more expansive style of play that we want, or the owners, the football board demand we want, we're giving up more chances at the back. So I don't think the change has been worth it so far. I think there's more stuff that's gone backwards than more stuff I'm seeing going forwards, unfortunately.
No, you're right. And you're right that we don't question the recruitment office too much.
Because Nicky Shorey got absolute pelters last season.
Yeah.
And yet we've got supposedly better players. Now, all right, Ollie Hawkins has not played. Ashley Naderson's been injured. Our top scorer's got 4. And he's not even our player.
No, that's the point I made yesterday. Like my tweet, I put Mahoney top scorer 4. ... That is concerning that your top scorer got 4 goals.
He invariably could not be here in 6 weeks if Huddersfield go, oh, we want to send him to League One.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and that is, you're right. We need. There is questions about the recruitment, and there's a lot of unanswers. We won't get the answers to. Like, did we put all our eggs in one basket for a particular Charlton player at the moment that we didn't get? And
maybe. Oh, dear.
but and then.
Sorry, everybody.
Yeah, that was fair enough. That was Sunday morning after 4 or 5 hours sleep. That wasn't bad.
Thanks. So polite. It was awful. Carry on. It's worse than the performance.
But maybe just that did we not get? It's always good. Did you get your first, second, third choice? I don't know. Do we? But that seems to be where the recruitment has let us down. Because we've shown that we can defend. We've looked at the start of the season. We've shown, even in the first half of yesterday, that we can ping the ball around quite nicely. What haven't we shown all season? I can put it in the back of the net. So
exactly, and that's not a new issue. That's going back to the relegation seasons.
Yeah,
the end of the Steve Evans reign.
Yeah,
it's massively concerning still, and I'm not sure what the answer is. So if we're not sure, and there's been a lot of sort of and ahhing from both of us today, which indicates that there are still a lot of unanswered questions, like you say, and more questions keep being raised regarding a lot of things. But that's what makes the world go round, and that's what gives us all something to talk about, I suppose. So maybe that is a nice point to end today's show, because it wasn't great. It was very cold. It was a long way from home. I'm going to lay on the sofa and turn the lights off, I think
I'll do something similar.
It's been a pleasure, as always, mate. We do manage to just about enjoy them, even when there's not a great deal of positivity to be talked about. So thank you very much. As always, if you are still watching at this point, then thank you very much. Whether that means you're a Gills fan, a Tranmere fan, or a neutral who just likes the content, if you're any of them, then thank you very much for all that you do. Please keep liking, subscribing, retweeting, sharing, and doing all of that jazz. just a quick note for upcoming content over the next few days. It will be slightly different. Tuesday, of course, there will be a match day live from Priestfield for Gillingham versus Wimbledon. Myself, I think Boz will be back, hopefully. I've not spoken to him for a few days. I know he's not been well. But then there won't be any FA Cup coverage this coming weekend because I've got my works Christmas party on Saturday and it's just not feasible to be able to get to the game, get back and then drive back to Medway. So instead of a match preview show in the week, looking forward to Charlton, there will be Gills in the pub returning. So that will be out probably Thursday, Friday. And we will just let that run over the weekend. So it means that Reese gets a weekend off from having to talk to my face. I guarantee we'll probably cause a mini upset now and beat Charlton, and I won't see it because I won't be at the game, unfortunately. Like I say, it's just one of them that's not possible. But I'd rather miss a cup game than a league game. And then, yeah, things should return to normal for a couple of weeks with previews, match day lives, and the such before Christmas just becomes match day live solely because it is family time. But yeah, that's where we're at. Thanks again for watching. We will see you Tuesday night for Matchday Live, where hopefully Gills can get back on the winning trail. But until then, up the Gills.